What is your name?
Renita Green.
Okay.
I am. I pastor St. James African Methodist Episcopal Church in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I'm not good at beating around the bush. So Trump has just unleashed this firestorm, this permission for people to just come out of their hiding places and be who they really are. I don't think that there's more racism in our country. I think that it's more overt than what it was in the past. If people are more comfortable making excuses for the racism, and they're more comfortable being blatant. And it's disturbing. I think that white people should bear the burden of correcting and calling into accountability racism as it is unleashed. I think that people who would not consider themselves racist are often quiet, and they hide or make excuses or water down, and it's and then at the same time will say that they are not racist or that they are for. You can't say that you are for people and then not advocate, and particularly advocate in spaces where you're not being seen or heard by the people you're advocating for. And I talked this morning about this white teenager who was staring down the Native American elder. It's a really great example, and part of what he claims in his statement is that he was responding to for African Americans who were taunting them. And so just this ease at which white folks are able to blame black people, blame anybody who isn't white for their behavior, justify their behavior, it's appalling. And to make excuses and to continue to patronize racism. I mean, I just really no other way to say it. And then when there's these cases where there's community violence and the police have been violent towards someone in the black community, white people will say, well, why don't we just forgive them? You know, and always asking the black community to forgive the white officer for like murdering our sons and our husbands. You know, always asking the black community to forgive people who have trespassed against them. But at the same time, the white folks are not living in forgiveness. They're not living in repentance. And I'm always struck by Jesus on the cross. He did not look at the people crucifying him and say, I forgive you. He was like, Father, forgive them. And I can just imagine just like this out of my hands. You know? Lord, you got to deal with them because I'm in my humanity right now. And for us to be called on, or for us to call on the community to forgive systemic violence is an atrocity. We need to stop holding people responsible for the healing of oppression that is caused by a system that we perpetuate. It doesn't matter if the wall was free. It is unjust and it's uncalled for. And you're right, there is suffering in our communities, and we don't have the money to provide proper education. We don't have the money to provide transportation. We don't have the money to do all of the things that need to be done to provide healthy living for our citizens, but yet we are willing to find the money, create the money, generate the money, GoFundMe the money to put up a wall that furthers the divide and our separation. The wall is a false sense of security. Even if the wall went up in the places that are designated, it does not cover every border around America. What are we going to do, live enclosed? Like, you know, and it makes me wonder, is the wall to keep others out, or is it really to keep us in? And that troubles me. What else troubles me is that's usually right around this holiday that we sing, you know, we'll walk hand in hand, we'll walk hand in hand. And it's really not until we decide that we are going to walk hand in hand, when we decide that we really will walk hand in hand, we'll be able to call BS together. We don't have to agree on tactics of how to solve community crisis. What we have to do is make a decision that together we're going to find a solution, because every problem has a solution. And so when particularly white men of influence began calling BS in public spaces, and when white women stopped crying about everything and start standing up for what is right, and when we are willing to risk our privilege, and when we are willing to risk our position, when we're willing to risk people liking us, and when we're willing to risk our popularity, then we will be able to be effective. Unfortunately, we are so afraid of losing this illusion of privilege and power and position and popularity that we tend to be quiet, and we are silent supporters. And somehow we've even taken the word I'm looking for, it's like we've taken pride in that, but it's not prideful. And if we're not willing to risk it all, we haven't risked anything. And if we're not willing to use our positions and privilege and power and popularity in order to shift change, then we're really part of the problem. We're not part of the solution. If we are going to really shift the climate of this culture, we have to take a united stand against all of the atrocities that are being suffered in poverty and classism, racism, all the isms, sexism, genderism. We have to stop approving of some forms of hate while calling out other forms. We can't be homophobic and say, but I'm not racist. Or we can't say, well, I'm a Christian, but I'm not this. We're so afraid, and the media culture seems to feed off our fear. And the more the messages can make us afraid of each other, afraid of progress, afraid of a perception of losing. And I'm not sure what it is we think we're going to lose, because none of this belongs to us anyway. And just one swift fire can wipe out all of this. Tornado, a hurricane, it's all gone. And here we are, willing to risk the lives of other people to protect stuff that has no real value. And so if we're going to really be who we say we are, we have to focus on that which makes an eternal difference, and be willing to sacrifice all the rest of this. The only way the system really has power over us is because we value what the power has. When we stop valuing what the power has, the power doesn't have any control over us. So, maybe it means that, we don't drive as nice of cars or live in as fancy of places, but are you willing to sacrifice that for the sake of restoring human dignity? We have to make those personal decisions. And when we make those personal decisions, we'll be able to live in community with peace and integrity. And equity means that everybody gets what they need. And so I think if we strive more toward equity and having a more equitable society, that we won't be lulled into such complacency. It's part of what this system says as well. There's equal access to education, but equal isn't equitable. And there's equal access to transportation, but equal isn't equitable. If the transportation doesn't get you to where you need to be, or doesn't get you there on time, or doesn't get you there at a cost that you can afford, public transportation is still, a figment of our imagination. It's not a realized goal. So, but I think we keep striving, and it's our love for each other. It's the love of God. Even those who don't understand themselves to be Christian, if we understand God and God is love, in our Christian faith, we believe that Jesus was the incarnation of God. God is love. Jesus was love made flesh. And what Jesus did was call into accountability the powers and the religious rulers, and called out religiosity called us to stop being so religious and stop being so legalistic and start being more personal and in relationship with each other. And so I think that if we just continue to apply the principles of love, we might not achieve the ultimate goal, but we'll alleviate suffering and make this world a more palatable place, which is actually what love is supposed to do. And then ultimate love is, when realized when we leave this world. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Beautiful.